She worked in my home, smiled at me every morning, and I thought of her as family. But while I planned my wedding, she planned to steal my groom. This is the story of how the maid in my house tried to become the mistress of my life, and how she lost everything. When I look back now, I realize betrayal doesn't start with knives in your back. It starts with smiles, with trust, with kindness so convincing you don't even see the shadows forming behind it. For me, it began with Rosa. She was the daughter of a distant cousin of our old housekeeper. When our longtime maid retired, my mother suggested giving Rosa a chance. She's quiet, hardworking, and grateful, my mother had said. And in the beginning, Rosa was exactly that. She moved into the small servants' quarters at the edge of our estate, and within days she had everyone in the household praising her. She cooked well, worked fast, and even remembered small details about people's preferences. She would bring me tea the way I liked it. 2 sugars, no milk, without me asking. She folded my clothes perfectly, even leaving lavender sachets in my drawers. I'll admit, I grew comfortable with her quickly. At the time, I was busy planning my wedding to Daniel, my college sweetheart. Daniel wasn't just charming, he was steady, the kind of man who made you feel safe. We'd been together 6 years, and when he proposed under the old oak tree on my family's property, I thought I had everything I'd ever dreamed of. Wedding planning was a whirlwind. Guest lists, floral arrangements, the dress fittings. My best friend Emma teased me constantly, saying I was turning into Bridezilla. But Rosa was different. She never teased, never complained. She always looked at me with those wide, admiring eyes and said, "You're so lucky, miss. Daniel adores you." I thought it was sweet. I thought it was loyalty. Little did I know, it was envy. The first moment that should have made me pause happened one late evening. I came home from a meeting with the wedding planner to find Daniel in the kitchen, laughing at something Rosa had said. She was standing by the counter, apron on, hair tied back. But the look she gave him was not that of a maid to her employer. It lingered, soft, almost intimate. Daniel caught my eye and smiled, saying, "Rosa was just telling me about her mother's cooking. Apparently I haven't lived until I've tried her family's empanadas." I laughed it off, even teasing Rosa about becoming Daniel's new cooking instructor. But something in her smile unsettled me. It wasn't just friendly, it was proud. As weeks passed, Rosa began inserting herself more into my life, asking about Daniel, offering to help with men's tastes when I was choosing cufflinks, even suggesting menu items Daniel might prefer for the reception. I told myself she was being thoughtful, that she wanted to help. After all, Rosa was just the maid. But sometimes the smallest cracks form long before the collapse. Do you believe betrayal always comes from the people closest to us? If I had trusted my instincts back then, maybe things would have been different. Maybe I could have stopped what was coming before it went too far. But when betrayal comes wrapped in politeness, in helpfulness, in carefully crafted innocence, it's almost impossible to call it out without looking paranoid. Rosa knew that. At first, her small gestures toward Daniel seemed harmless. She'd bring him coffee if he worked late at my family's study. She'd casually mention she had ironed his shirts, so he'd look his best for miss. Once, she even baked his favorite dessert, apple crumble, claiming she had overheard me mention it. Daniel, being kind-hearted, saw nothing wrong. He praised her. "She's a treasure. Your family's lucky to have her," he told me one night as we were going through wedding invitations. "She's good at her job," I said, trying to shrug it off. But deep inside, a strange unease stirred. It wasn't jealousy, not yet. It was awareness. One Saturday morning, I came downstairs earlier than usual. The smell of fresh bread pulled me into the kitchen. There, I found Rosa at the stove, humming softly while Daniel sat at the counter with a steaming cup of coffee in hand. He looked up and smiled when he saw me. "Morning, love." Rosa insisted I try her homemade bread recipe. "It's incredible." "Good morning, miss," Rosa said, her voice sweet, but her eyes lingered on Daniel just a moment too long before lowering. I kissed Daniel on the cheek and pretended not to notice, but the knot in my stomach tightened. Emma was the first person I confided in. Over brunch one afternoon, I told her, "It's silly, but sometimes I feel like Rosa pays too much attention to Daniel. More than she should." Emma frowned. "Do you think Daniel notices?" "No," I said quickly. "He's oblivious. That's just who he is. And Rosa, she's just the maid. Maybe I'm imagining it?" Emma didn't look convinced. Sometimes women like Rosa don't see themselves as just the maid. If you're feeling uneasy, trust that feeling. I brushed her words aside, but they clung to me like burrs. Things escalated in ways so subtle, I almost missed them. Rosa began dressing differently at home, skirts that hugged her figure more, blouses with lower necklines than she'd worn before. When I commented lightly on her new style, she smiled and said, "Oh, miss, I just want to look presentable in such a beautiful home." One evening, as Daniel and I were leaving for dinner, Rosa stepped forward, fixing his tie with nimble fingers before I could react. "There," she said softly. "Perfect." Daniel chuckled. "Thank you, Rosa," before opening the door for me. I forced a smile, but inside, I was burning. That was the moment I realized something dangerous was brewing. Rosa wasn't just serving tea or folding clothes anymore. She was testing boundaries. And Daniel, kind, unsuspecting Daniel, didn't see it. If you were in my place, would you confront Rosa immediately? Or wait until there's undeniable proof? The weeks that followed were like walking through fog. Everything looked normal on the surface, yet underneath, something was shifting. I kept telling myself I was overreacting. Rosa was just a maid. Daniel was loyal, trustworthy, and in love with me. What harm could there be in a little friendliness? But the lines between friendliness and something else grew blurrier by the day. One evening, Daniel and I were in the garden, sipping wine under the fairy lights strung across the pergola. Rosa appeared at the doorway, carrying a tray of cheese and fruit. "I thought you might want a little something with your wine," she said, her voice dripping with courtesy. "That's thoughtful of you," Daniel said, taking the tray. She smiled, not at me, but at him. Her eyes lingered, like she was silently daring me to notice. I did. Later that night, when Daniel had gone upstairs, I lingered in the kitchen. Rosa was rinsing glasses at the sink. "Rosa," I said carefully, "you don't need to serve us when we're outside. You can rest in the evenings." She turned, drying her hands slowly. "Of course, miss. I only wanted to be helpful." Then, with a slight tilt of her head, she added, You know, Daniel works so hard. He deserves someone who notices the little things. The words hit me like a slap, but before I could respond, she smiled sweetly and left the room. That night, I lay awake beside Daniel, staring at the ceiling. Was Rosa implying that I didn't notice? That she, a maid, saw more of Daniel than I did? The thought gnawed at me. Emma noticed the toll it was taking on me. When we met for coffee, she said, "You look tired." "Is it Rosa again?" I nodded. "She's crossing lines, Emma." Subtle but real. The way she looks at him. The things she says. Emma leaned forward. "Then stop waiting for proof. Set boundaries. Make it clear she's out of line." But how could I? If I confronted Rosa, Daniel might think I was jealous or insecure. The last thing I wanted was to drive a wedge between us. Instead, I tried another approach. Watchfulness. I started paying attention to Rosa's patterns. When did she hover? When did she happen to be around Daniel? I noticed she lingered near the study when he worked late, or found reasons to pass through the living room when he was watching TV. And then came the moment that made my blood run cold. One rainy afternoon, I returned home early from errands. The house was quiet, except for the sound of laughter coming from the library. I peeked through the doorway, and there was Rosa, sitting on the arm of the sofa, far too close to Daniel as he showed her something on his laptop. She leaned in, touching his shoulder lightly, her smile too intimate for words. My heart pounded. Daniel looked up, surprised to see me. "Oh, hey." Rosa was just helping me with something. Helping him? In our library? Sitting that close? I forced a smile, but inside, I knew the fog had lifted. This wasn't my imagination anymore. What would you do if you walked in on this scene? Quietly watch to gather more evidence or confront them right there? After that afternoon in the library, I couldn't shake the image of Rosa sitting too close to Daniel, her hand grazing his shoulder as though she had every right to touch him. I told myself not to explode. Not yet. If I confronted Daniel too soon, he might think I was overreacting or jealous, and Rosa would win. No, I needed clarity. Proof. Something undeniable. But clarity doesn't always come quietly. It often crashes in when you least expect it. The first crack appeared one evening when Daniel came home late from work. He was distracted, his tie loosened, his phone buzzing constantly. "Rough day?" I asked, handing him a glass of water. "Yeah, just long meetings. You know how it is." But he didn't meet my eyes when he said it. Later, after he'd gone to shower, his phone buzzed again. I glanced at the screen. A message from an unsaved number. Just 3 words. "He looks tired." My stomach dropped. Who sends a message like that? Not a colleague, not a friend. It was personal, intimate, and I had a sickening feeling I knew exactly who it was. Rosa. The next day, I decided to test her. I told her Daniel and I would be away for the weekend, though in truth, we were staying home. That evening, I waited, listening from upstairs. At 8:30 sharp, I heard her footsteps in the hall, moving toward Daniel's study. I crept down silently, careful not to make a sound. Through the cracked door, I heard her voice. "You work too hard, Daniel. You need someone to take care of you." Silence. Then Daniel's low laugh. "Rosa, you shouldn't..." "Shouldn't what?" She interrupted softly. "Care about you. Notice when she doesn't?" The words sliced through me. When she doesn't. She was talking about me. I wanted to burst in, to scream, to throw her out right then and there. But something held me back. If Daniel was wavering, even slightly, I needed to see how far she would go. I leaned against the wall, my heart hammering. Then I heard it. The sound of her hand brushing fabric, a soft sigh, and Daniel's chair scraping back. "Rosa, stop," he said firmly. "This isn't right." A pause, then Rosa's voice, dripping with false innocence. "I'm sorry, Daniel. I just thought maybe you deserved more." That was enough. I pushed the door open. Rosa froze, her face a picture of surprise that quickly turned into something else. Something sharper, like satisfaction. Daniel stood, his expression unreadable. "Claire, this isn't what it looks like." I laughed bitterly. "Oh, it looks exactly like what it is. She's trying to steal you, Daniel, and you're letting her." His jaw tightened, but Rosa's lips curved into the faintest smile, as though she'd achieved exactly what she wanted, driving a wedge between us. I walked out before either of them could say another word. That night, lying awake in the silence of our bedroom, I realized something chilling. This wasn't just about Rosa wanting Daniel. It was about Rosa wanting me gone. Would you have confronted Rosa right there like I did, or kept silent to gather even more evidence? The morning after I confronted Rosa in the study, the atmosphere in the house was thick with tension. Daniel moved quietly, avoiding my gaze, while Rosa behaved as though nothing had happened. She hummed softly while setting the breakfast table, her smile infuriatingly calm, as if she hadn't nearly destroyed everything the night before. I couldn't take it anymore. "Rosa," I said sharply, "leave us. We don't need you this morning." Her smile faltered, but she nodded and walked out, her skirt swishing as if she still owned the room. Daniel finally looked at me. "Claire, you're blowing this out of proportion." "Out of proportion?" I snapped. "I heard her, Daniel. She's not just a maid. She's manipulating you, trying to turn you against me." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "She's lonely. Maybe she said something inappropriate, but you're reading too much into it." His dismissal cut deeper than Rosa's schemes. For the first time, I wondered if Rosa's poison was working. Over the following days, cracks began to appear in our engagement. Daniel seemed distant, distracted, always with excuses about work or needing space. When we did talk, arguments erupted quickly, fueled by suspicion and unspoken words. And Rosa? She thrived in the chaos. I caught her lingering outside our bedroom door more than once, listening. She began dressing differently, too. Her plain uniforms replaced by more fitted clothes, her hair styled carefully. When I questioned her about it, she replied with a sugary smile. "I just want to present myself well, miss." After all, appearances matter in a house like this. Her words carried a hidden dagger. One evening, Emma came to visit. As soon as she walked in, she sensed the tension. "What's going on here?" she whispered, pulling me aside. "It's Rosa," I confessed, my voice breaking. "She's trying to seduce Daniel. And he doesn't see it. Or maybe he doesn't want to." Emma's eyes darkened. "Then you need to be smarter than her. Rosa wants you emotional. She wants you to look insecure. Don't give her that satisfaction. Catch her in her lies, with proof Daniel can't ignore." Her advice echoed in my head long after she left. Proof. That was the key. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. 2 nights later, Daniel said he'd be working late at the office. But at midnight, I noticed his car still parked outside. A gnawing instinct told me to check. I crept down the hallway, stopping near the library. The door was slightly ajar, light spilling out. Inside, I saw them. Daniel sitting at the desk, Rosa perched dangerously close again. She leaned in, whispering something I couldn't hear, her hand resting lightly on his arm. This time, I didn't barge in. I pulled up my phone and snapped a photo, my hands shaking. The click was quiet, but Rosa's head jerked up, her eyes meeting mine through the crack in the door, and for the first time, her mask slipped. Her smile wasn't sweet anymore. It was victorious. If you were in my shoes, would you show Daniel the photo right away, or hold on to it and wait for Rosa to trap herself even further? The image of Rosa's triumphant smile haunted me. She wasn't just chasing Daniel's attention, she was feeding on my silence, thriving on the cracks in my relationship. But Emma's words echoed in my mind. Don't confront her with anger, catch her with proof. That night, I couldn't sleep. Instead, I lay awake, planning. Rosa had made this a game of deceit, and if she wanted to play games, I would play smarter. The next morning, I treated Rosa with an icy politeness that seemed to confuse her. Rosa, I said evenly, could you please handle the arrangements for next week's charity dinner? Daniel and I will need the house in perfect order. Her eyebrows lifted, clearly surprised I was trusting her with something so important. Of course, Miss Claire, she replied smoothly, though her eyes flickered with suspicion. I needed her to feel secure, to believe I was backing down. Meanwhile, I set my plan in motion. I contacted an old friend, Marcus, who worked in security. He installed discreet cameras in the main rooms, the study, the library, even the hallway outside Daniel's office. It wasn't illegal. It was my house. And if Rosa wanted to turn it into a stage for her seduction, I would capture every performance. Days passed and Rosa grew bolder. She accidentally brushed Daniel's arm while serving him coffee, lingered too long while setting down his dinner plate, and even dared to laugh softly at his jokes. The kind of laugh that belonged to a lover, not a maid. Daniel, blinded by his kindness, didn't see the danger. Or maybe he refused to, but I did. And now I had eyes everywhere. The first recording I reviewed nearly broke me. Rosa leaned against Daniel's desk, her voice dripping with false concern. She doesn't see you, Daniel. Not the way I do. You deserve someone who makes you the center of their world. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. Rosa, enough. You're crossing lines, am I? She whispered. Or are you just afraid to admit I'm right? Watching the video, my hands shook with fury. But then I noticed something important. Daniel hadn't encouraged her. He looked tense, even irritated. It gave me a sliver of hope. Still, I needed more. One evening, I forgot my bracelet in the library and asked Rosa to fetch it. Minutes later, I watched through the hidden camera as she rifled through drawers, pausing when she found a framed photo of Daniel and me. She stared at it, her expression twisting with envy before she placed it face down on the desk. That was when I knew. Rosa didn't just want Daniel. She wanted my place, my life, everything I had. The game had shifted. She wasn't the maid anymore. In her mind, she was already the mistress. But what Rosa didn't know was that the walls were closing in, and soon, her every move would be her undoing. If you discovered secret footage like this, would you confront your partner immediately or wait until the guilty person had no way to deny it? The night of the charity dinner arrived, and with it, Rosa's grandest opportunity. Or so she thought. Our home buzzed with preparations. The chandeliers glistened, the long dining table was draped in ivory silk, and the scent of fresh roses filled the air. Daniel, dressed in his tailored suit, looked every inch the perfect host. I smiled at him, masking the storm that brewed inside me. And then there was Rosa. She had traded her modest maid's uniform for a sleek black dress, elegant but too daring for someone in her position. Her lipstick was a shade of crimson I'd never seen her wear before, and her hair flowed in soft waves, as though she were the lady of the house. My blood boiled, but I forced a polite smile. Let her play her role. Tonight, she would write her own downfall. The guests arrived, businessmen, socialites, and family friends. Laughter and clinking glasses filled the air. Rosa moved among them like a shadow, but I noticed how her eyes rarely left Daniel. At one point, while pouring him a glass of wine, she leaned close and whispered something in his ear. I watched from across the room as Daniel stiffened, his smile faltering before he quickly excused himself. My chest tightened. What had she said? Later, as the guests mingled in the drawing room, I slipped into the kitchen, where Rosa stood smugly adjusting her dress. You've done well tonight, I said softly. Her lips curled into a sly grin. Thank you, Miss Claire. I only want everything to be perfect for Daniel. The way she said his name, without honor, without boundaries, made my hands clench at my sides. But I stayed calm. Careful, Rosa. Perfection can turn into arrogance when one forgets their place. She tilted her head, eyes gleaming with challenge. Places change, don't they? Sometimes the maid becomes the mistress. It was the boldest confession yet, and I silently thanked the camera hidden behind the wine rack that captured every poisonous word. When I rejoined the party, Daniel approached me. His face was troubled. Claire, we need to talk later. I nodded, my stomach twisting, but held my composure. The evening wasn't over yet. The climax came during the final toast. Daniel raised his glass to thank our guests, but as he spoke, Rosa drifted to his side, her hand grazing his arm in front of everyone. A few guests exchanged glances, their whispers buzzing like hornets. Daniel froze, then gently but firmly removed her hand. His voice wavered, but he continued the toast. I watched Rosa's mask slip, just for an instant. A flash of frustration, of desperation. She had overplayed her hand, and people noticed. The room shimmered with laughter and applause, but beneath it all, a shift had begun. Rosa had crossed the line in public, and that meant her fall would no longer be private. It would be witnessed. If you were in Claire's place, would you expose Rosa immediately at the dinner, or wait and use her mistake to build undeniable proof? The morning after the charity dinner, the house felt strangely heavy. The laughter and music from the night before had long faded, leaving only silence and tension. Daniel barely touched his breakfast. He stirred his coffee absent-mindedly, his brows furrowed. You seemed distracted last night, I said carefully. He glanced up, hesitating. Claire, I don't know how to put this, but Rosa said something to me. My chest tightened, but I kept my face calm. What did she say? He sighed. She implied that she cared for me, more than she should, and she made it sound like you. You weren't the right one for me. There it was. Rosa had finally revealed herself to him, not just through her actions, but through her words. I leaned back, my voice steady. And what did you think? Daniel ran a hand through his hair. At first, I was shocked. I thought maybe I'd misheard her, but last night, when she touched me in front of everyone, I knew she wasn't just confused. After something, his admission was both a relief and a wound. Part of me wanted to shout, I told you so. Another part grieved for the trust Rosa had broken. Not just mine, but his too. Daniel, I said softly, I didn't want to believe it, but she's been crossing boundaries for weeks. She's tried to drive a wedge between us. I didn't say anything because I wanted you to see it for yourself. He nodded slowly, regret clouding his eyes. I should have noticed sooner. I thought she was just lonely or grateful. But now, he trailed off, staring at the untouched toast on his plate. Just then, Rosa entered the room, carrying fresh flowers as if nothing had happened. She placed them in the vase and turned to Daniel with a smile that now seemed brittle. Good morning, sir, she said sweetly. I hope you rested well. Daniel's jaw tightened. Rosa, we need to talk. Her smile faltered. Of course. About what? About last night. About everything. The air thickened. I stayed silent, letting him take the lead. This was his moment to draw the line. Your behavior was unacceptable, Daniel said firmly. You crossed boundaries that should never have been crossed. Whatever ideas you've had, they end now. Claire's the woman I love. This is her home, not yours. For the first time, Rosa's mask cracked. Her eyes flashed with hurt, then fury. So she told you lies about me, didn't she? She's jealous, Daniel. She doesn't deserve you. I do. Her words rang sharp in the air. Daniel stood, his voice steady. Enough. I won't hear another word against Claire. You've betrayed her kindness and my trust. From this moment on, things will change. Rosa's lips trembled, her eyes dark with anger, but she said nothing more. She turned and walked out, the sound of her heels echoing like the ticking of a clock, counting down to her inevitable downfall. Do you think Daniel should fire Rosa immediately, or let her stay long enough to expose more of her schemes? After Daniel's confrontation, Rosa's presence in the house became unbearable. The once sweet and obedient maid was now a storm contained within fragile walls. She performed her duties with stiff politeness, her eyes avoiding mine, her smile gone. But beneath that silence, I could feel her anger brewing. Daniel had insisted she be given time to pack her belongings. It's only fair, he said. She's worked here for years. She deserves to leave with dignity, I agreed outwardly, but in my heart, I knew Rosa was not done. Dignity was the last thing she wanted. She wanted victory. That evening, I caught her in Daniel's study. She was rifling through drawers with frantic movements, her hands trembling. Papers fluttered to the floor around her like fallen leaves. What are you doing? I demanded, stepping into the room. She spun around, her face pale but her eyes burning with rage. You, she spat. You don't belong here. Everything you have should have been mine. Her words echoed in the quiet room. What are you talking about? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Rosa's lips curled into a twisted smile. Do you think I don't remember? Growing up in this house, cleaning up after your perfect little life while my mother bowed to your family? Watching you get everything, education, beauty, privilege, while I had nothing? I swore one day I would take what you value most, and I almost had him. Her confession was like a dagger. This wasn't about love. It was never about Daniel. It was about revenge. You tried to use him, I said coldly. And in the process, you destroyed any chance of earning respect or kindness. Her voice cracked with bitterness. Respect? Kindness? Those are crumbs thrown from the tables of people like you. I don't want crumbs. I want the feast. Daniel entered then, his face hard as stone. He had heard every word. Rosa, he said quietly, you've gone too far. She turned to him, desperation flashing across her face. Don't you see? I'm the one who understands you. She's spoiled. She'll never stand by you like I would. Everything she has is because of her family. I would fight for you. Daniel shook his head, his voice steady. You don't love me, Rosa. You just hate her. That's not love, it's poison. And I won't let it into my life. Tears welled in her eyes, but her anger burned brighter. She grabbed a framed photo from the desk, one of Daniel and me at our engagement party, and hurled it against the wall. Glass shattered, the sound sharp and violent. You'll regret this, she hissed. Both of you. I stood my ground, my heart pounding but my resolve unshaken. No, Rosa. The only one who will regret this is you. Daniel called the housekeeper, instructing her to ensure Rosa packed and left by morning. Rosa's steps as she stormed out were heavy, but her glare lingered, promising that this battle wasn't quite over. And though I wanted to believe it was finished, a chill ran through me. Desperate people rarely left quietly. Do you think Rosa will leave quietly, or will she make one final move before the end? The morning Rosa was meant to leave, the house was tense. The air felt thick, charged with unspoken fears. Daniel tried to reassure me, saying, she'll be gone soon. After today, we can put this behind us. But deep down, I wasn't so sure. As the housekeeper helped Rosa pack her things, I kept myself busy in the sitting room, though every sound from upstairs made me flinch. Finally, the heavy thud of her suitcase echoed down the staircase. Rosa appeared, her face a mask of false calm. Goodbye, she said flatly, her eyes flicking between Daniel and me. I wanted to believe it was over, but the look she gave me wasn't one of defeat. It was a promise. Not long after, Daniel left for a meeting in town. I stayed home, determined to restore some peace to the house. That's when I heard it, footsteps in the hallway. I thought perhaps Rosa had forgotten something, but when I turned the corner, my breath caught. She was still there. Rosa stood in the dining room, a lighter in her hand, staring at the curtains. The flames flickered dangerously close to catching. Rosa! I cried, rushing toward her. She spun around, her face twisted with rage. If I can't have this life, then neither can you. I'll burn this house, your perfect little world, everything. I froze, fear clawing at me. But then something shifted inside me. I couldn't let her win. Not with destruction, not with hate. Rosa, listen to yourself, I said firmly, my voice shaking but steady. You think this will give you power? It won't. You'll be left with ashes and nothing else. Don't throw away what little you have left. Her hand trembled on the lighter, her eyes darting between me and the curtains. For a moment, I saw the scared girl beneath the bitterness, someone who had never truly felt love or belonging. But the rage returned, sharper than before. You don't understand. You've always had everything. You don't know what it's like to be invisible. Just then, Daniel rushed in. He must have sensed something was wrong and come back. He strode forward, his voice commanding. Rosa, drop it. For a second, I thought she would defy him, but her resolve faltered. The lighter slipped from her hand, clattering to the floor. She sank into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably. It was over. The police were called, and Rosa was taken away, not as a maid, not as a rival, but as a woman, broken by her own hatred. Watching her go, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. Later that evening, Daniel held me close on the porch. It's finally done, he whispered. I looked out at the setting sun, its golden light spilling across the estate. No, I said softly, it's not just done. It's a beginning. She tried to destroy us, but instead, she made us stronger. Daniel kissed my forehead, and for the first time in weeks, I felt peace. Rosa's shadow had lifted. What remained was love, trust, and a bond that no betrayal could break. And as I gazed at the home she had tried to ruin, I knew one thing for certain. This was my life, my love, and no one, not even Rosa, could take it from me. Do you believe people like Rosa deserve a second chance, or do some betrayals go too far to ever be forgiven?